Hello, and thanks for being with us here on the New Life Show, a series of talks with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Yael Shedarel. Hello. Today we'd like to talk to Dr. Laitman about history. History from the perspective of how to correctly relate to everything that we went through as a mankind, and how does it influence our life here and now. Be with us, Yael, please. Yeah, we all study history in school, and this morning I read in the news that a prehistorical archaeological site that dates 500,000 years back was discovered. Archaeologists are very excited, and this raises many questions. 500,000 years. Yeah, this is what they say. When things were still made out of stone, and several civilizations lived there throughout the years, so they can learn not only about what happened 500,000 years ago, but also what happened afterwards. And I was thinking, is it important to reveal these things? Why is it important to reveal these things? What's the significance of the history of the world, the significance of the history of each and every nation in particular? And this is what we'd like to talk about on our show. And we'd like to open with the question of, what is the importance of history for man, the history of the world, the history of his nation? What is the significance of history for man and mankind? Well, man that knows about his history feels that he has roots, that he has some kind of attachment, force, and a place in the world, that he didn't simply come out of nowhere just now or hatched from an egg, but there were many generations before him that arranged life for him, that established it. He got his language, education, culture from them, the closer, more distant people, even his enemies and so on. He feels that the world was passed on to him from a previous generation, the way it was passed on, but he lives in this world because he understands and feels the ceaseless process of cause and consequence. And therefore it's actually not his history, but it's his life. Even though that, if we can say about a person that he's living for 1,000,000 years, or several millions of years, then okay, this is his life. So from generation to generation, he lives and dies as if, but actually, all in all, it's a kind of external part of his that dies, but his inner part is constantly being renewed. He constantly keeps on living and developing. And therefore that we see that there are many bodies that live and die, maybe we have to look at it differently. That really there is a variety of bodies here that are renewed. It's like going to sleep and waking up again, and then history isn't history, but it becomes a kind of life. Why call it the history that's ahead from birth and on, and the history that's behind us from the day of death and on? But to see things above that. I'm kind of confused regarding what you said. I don't want to look at man. I want to look at a nation, suppose, or all the nations, the way they're supposed to see history. That no one dies, nothing comes to an end, nothing's born, but it's a lengthy process that started somewhere there millions of years ago, and who knows when will it end? Why is it important for me to know what happened in the past? It gives a person a feeling of his roots, a basis, a foundation, that he's not alone, that he's not torn, disconnected from reality, but on the contrary, that he's a part of reality, that he develops with reality. Meaning, who is he? He's that person that lived back in the Stone Age, and then the Copper Age, and then the Iron Age, until today. He lives in the Plastic Age. So it gives you a kind of a very broad perspective. It gives you a much broader perspective of yourself and mankind. Yeah, and I see everything in one glance. But still, what does it give me today? We can't. We can't live without roots. And along with it, not to be immersed in the past, like we said on our previous shows, and constantly to search for a better, safer, truer future, coming closer to the laws of nature, to understanding nature. How does it influence a person when he knows that he doesn't simply have a beginning and end, but he also has a history and probably some kind of future ahead? How does it influence his reality? It's supposed to influence him in a way that, whether he likes it or not, he's built by all the previous generations. They exist in him. Bala Sulam writes about it beautifully in his articles, about all the previous generations. And how are we based on them, even though that we're not aware of it? And this is how we have to continue. And therefore, knowing the past, it's correct in order to learn from it, but not to be immersed in it. When you talk about this, I feel that it's even beyond intellectual studies, because it's not intellectual. I have to know about these periods. We're talking about the character of a nation, of a person, of a family. We're talking about lots of data that exists in each of us and in each group and in every nation. And we have to study them in order to know how can we really bring ourselves to a perfect state that will be content with life. Knowing the past is a kind of force. Knowing the past, first of all, it's necessary in order to know how do I achieve good in the present and in the future. Okay. There are many approaches that say that it's important to understand history because history repeats itself, meaning that if I'll understand certain social processes, political processes, and so on, even economical processes that happened in the past, I'll actually know how to characterize certain patterns of behavior, and then I'll know how to cope with those things in the future. Does history repeat itself, in your opinion? Yes, because we have to learn from history that we develop according to what's called in the wisdom of Kabbalah, Daled Bchinot Dor Yashar, the 4 phases of direct light, which means that there are 5 periods, 5 eras, 5 special eras in the development of life on Earth. Like at first there was the period of the inanimate, then there were the periods of the vegetative, the animate, and now it's the beginning of the speaking age. We can say that it started 6,000 years ago, from the times of Adam to this day, through ancient Babylon and Abraham and Moses in Egypt and so on. And after the exiles and destructions that we went through, and now we're coming back from the exile to the land of Israel, to the state of Israel, and to a state where we have to correct all of the previous stages by bringing them to completion, to perfection. And by that, we finish our entire development in this world, in the physical world. And then our world ascends back to the spiritual origin from which it was created, suppose 14.5 billion years ago. On one of our previous shows, you talked about spiritual history and corporeal history. You talked about two completely different things. Can you explain a bit what is spiritual history and what is corporeal history? The way I see it, there is no difference. There's just one history, and it's not history. It's just the way we developed. It's not exactly what scientists think, or even worse, different historians or politicians, that it's all linked, related. We all know history and politics. I can't even write about what happened 1 billion years ago or 1 million years ago if it doesn't coincide with the politics of my country, because there might be some kind of confrontation, and it can go against the views of politicians, and correspondingly, I can have problems regarding my historic views. So history too, it's not... History is very much politicized. It's very politicized. You can't move there or express anything, because if I say that someone fell or someone rose because of this or because of that, it all has to do with history and politics, so there are interests, of course. And this is how it is to this day. And therefore, all these parts, they're very sensitive for each and every nation, with their history, with everything that goes on. Going back to, does history repeat itself? History repeats itself, meaning that in each and every period we go over the same stages, only on a higher level. So it's a kind of a spiral-like development, meaning a certain period begins, goes through 5 stages, come to an end, and again, and so on. What are the stages that every period goes through on a very basic level, just to understand what you're saying? The growing of the ego on the levels of the inanimate, on its 5 particular degrees, the vegetative degree with its 5 particular degrees, the animate degree with its 5 particular degrees, and the speaking level with its 5 particular degrees. The ego of mankind or of all of nature? The ego of the part of nature that I'm talking about, the inanimate, vegetative, animate, or the speaking. So everything develops throughout history, and they have different phases of development. Similar phases of development, but each on its level, to its extent. We can't compare what happens in the inanimate and what happens in the vegetative, but in each of them, they're the same stages of development, only in the inanimate it looks like this, in the vegetative it looks differently. What about the history of mankind? Does history repeat itself among the human species? What do you mean, repeats itself? It repeats itself on a higher level. So it's like an ever-growing cycle. But the stages in each of these cycles, they're identical? Yes, only it's more qualitative. Yeah. So only about mankind, when there's a cycle, it consists of 5 stages? Yes. What are these stages? Just like there are 5 degrees, 5 cyclic degrees, in each cycle, there are also 5 degrees. So let's take one cycle in history that includes 5 stages, and then there's a leap to a higher degree with its 5 stages, and so on and so forth. 5 times 5, 25. So just to understand, can you explain in simple words, what are the 5 stages in each cycle? The growing of the ego, and correspondingly in each nation, a bit of a different style of its development. So it's different volumes of the development of the ego in 5 stages? Of course. Looking back at history in general, the history of mankind. What essential processes did mankind go through throughout history? A few points, not from the point of view of an historian, but your point of view as a Kabbalist. My point of view as a Kabbalist. It was the appearance of Adam, in Hebrew meaning man, that in a human being in this world appeared the ability to discover the upper force, so-called godliness, the upper force of nature, and then to understand all the stages, all the reasons, all the laws, the entire process, through all the worlds and how it happens, including his world. He was called Adam, and this was 5,779 years ago. That it's not the first man on earth? No, he had a mother and father and relatives and everything. So what was unique about him, about this man? That he attained the Creator. It's an ability that didn't appear in his parents, neither in all the previous generations, and he's the first that from him and on in our world started to appear people that had the ability to attain the Creator and attain the Creator. What is this ability to attain the Creator? How was he different from his parents? He wasn't any different. Besides this, his parents called him Adam, Adam. Why? They didn't know. Quick side note from the translator, in Hebrew, Adam means to be like the upper force. And attaining the Creator is something that separated him from all of his predecessors. You point him out because he made a breakthrough. The people that lived before him didn't reveal what he revealed. He pointed out the boundary between spirituality and corporeality, that from him and on, the spiritual creatures started developing in mankind. What do you mean? That there was Adam, a man, like we see, who was no more than a beast, like everyone else is. And in this man, in this Adam, inside of him, began developing some kind of a new spiritual creature. Inside where? Inside you can't know where. There is no place. So when you say inside, what do you mean? Inside his awareness, inside his feeling. And you're talking about it as a dramatic change. So what does it give? Where does it take us? Why did you point this out? From that point and on, mankind started developing in the direction of the recognition of the Creator. What is the Creator? It's the upper force of nature. And why is it important to get to know Him? Because by that, we rise to that force, to that root of ours, that we came from, that we were created by, the inanimate, vegetative, and animate, and from Adam and on, it's called the speaking degree, the speaking era, and this is how we started developing, meaning that all people, starting with Adam, have a spiritual potential. Yes, something that until then didn't exist. Yes, and from him and on, they have a potential. It's not that they feel it, or that this is how they live, but that each person has the potential for spiritual development. And so the way you describe it is that mankind went in a certain direction until a certain period, and suddenly in that person and his awareness, this ability to attain the Creator developed in him, and suddenly something happens. Suddenly there are new options. So let's understand, why is it so meaningful? Because just like all other periods, this period in which we live a bodily life in, it's a short, temporary period that soon we'll have to stop it. It's not up to us. Stop what? Stop living in it. All of us? All of us, yes. And move on to the next degree. You, me, Oren, everyone, all of our viewers. Of course, everyone. And our world as if evaporates. Bala Sulam writes about it. And then what? So actually, he's the option to live in a different manner. We have to move on to living in a different manner, in a spiritual manner. And until then, all of us will be ready for it. So actually, there's a certain developmental process going on here that's been going on for almost 6,000 years, that it's a kind of a potential, spiritual potential to reveal the Creator. So what does it mean for us today as human beings? What are we supposed to do with this understanding? In the meantime, there's nothing to do. Let's calm down. Okay. It's not on the agenda yet. What is? To acknowledge this to some extent and advance, because by this we improve our life and we understand where nature is pushing us. What historically significant events are happening in our life nowadays? We live in a very special era where mankind is becoming despaired of its entire development, the way it was until now, and actually wants to determine a new kind of development. Now we're really lost. We don't know what to do or where to go, and everything that man developed in this world, we see everything we've developed. All in all, what we've developed are weapons to kill, to simply destroy everything. Meaning all of man's intellect and emotions, his entire superiority to the animate degree, it's all only in order to destroy nature. After the plastic era, I like this name, the plastic era. After it, what period is awaiting us? Spiritual era. What is it? It means that we rise to the spiritual degree of existence. That what we're experiencing now is the age of our ego. The age of this ego is going on for almost 15 billion years now. Long time. Yeah. And soon we're finishing it. And then what? And then we rise to the next degree, which is what? The spiritual degree, where we exist not in matter, but in force. Which means what? That we will live in forces and not in matter, in substance like you feel it now. When you say matter and when you say force, what do you mean? Now you live because you consist of matter and you feel yourself through that matter. My senses, my body, your senses, even your mind, your emotions, your perception of reality, it's all through matter. Then you'll enter the recognition of the program of reality, and you'll start examining it, existing not through matter, but force. What do you mean by force? That you'll live in a program. Previously you said that man lives through corporeal things. How will he feel reality now? Through spiritual qualities. What are spiritual qualities or attributes? I can't say. It's the opposite to your nature. You'll have to rise to the degree of a new feeling, where you'll start feeling things not in your will to receive, but in the desire to bestow and give. What is the desire to receive? The desire to receive is the desire to acquire, to fulfill oneself. This is what you call ego. This is the desire that you mean by ego, which is completely natural. Yeah, and this is how we perceive the world for billions of years. Yes. What next? In the future history. What's in the future history is that you will change your perception of reality. That's now depicted within your will to receive, within your ego, the way it's depicted. And therefore, what's depicted is called my world. And you'll start feeling reality in the form of bestolen love, according to what's outside of you. And you yourself become only he who feels reality. You don't acquire it, you don't pull it, you don't anything. You feel it. You try to fulfill it. You try to love it and to sacrifice yourself for the sake of reality. The way now you completely sacrifice yourself as if for your life, meaning you live in a world that's not made of matter. Yeah, to live in spirit. How does the history of everything that we experienced until now, how will it help us in our future stages? We'll study it and understand that this is the process that all of us go through according to the laws of nature, and we have no choice. This is something that we have to do. The only thing is that either nature advances us through pressure, blows, and wars, and it also says so in the wisdom of Kabbalah that this might happen, or that here for the very first time in history we have free choice to advance to the next degree, the next phase, in a way that we ourselves help ourselves. Dr. Laitman, this is really interesting. Unfortunately, our time's up. What's the most important thing to take from this show about our collective history as a mankind? You want to understand? Come study. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yael. Thanks for being with us. Till next time. All